Hey everybody, hey everybody, hey everybody. It just dawned on me too. Three Italians. We're three Italian guys. You know, like they had the Italian tenors. Um, you know, we're like whatever, we're three Italian dudes. I just wish that Joe Cardinal would revert back to his original Italian name, Cardinale.
You'd be surprised how many people just instinctively call me that. I don't know. To me, it's not a real obvious Italian name, Cardinal. Some people think it's Hispanic. Not that I look at, but yeah, but a lot of people will just say, hey, Giuseppe Cardinelli, not just you, which is kind of interesting. And I've actually told people, that's actually my real family name, with the E. And they actually, sometimes they're surprised to hear that. But yeah, it's funny. But yeah, I think originally, weren't we going to call this show Three Dagos?
Well, we can, I'm sure they call us a lot worse than that. So yeah, we could do that. So they're like in my thing, my last name was originally with an I. Now my dad said no, but I have a cousin who did all the research, or not all. I mean, she did it as far as she could go. And she said, yeah, it was with an I. Although there are Cecchines with an E out there in Italy. Actually, there was a Villa Cecchine in Tuscany region. I saw this, like, I don't know how long ago, 10 years ago, something, 12, maybe longer than that. It's gone now, I think. But because we're not from that Tuscan region. But I take all of that family tree stuff with a huge grain of salt, because it's hard to get records. It really is. And especially in Europe and back then, and especially if it was in a farming community, because I don't know if you guys know this, but here, even in America, many of the people who were down south, especially, and maybe even up north, they didn't even have birth certificates. They would put in their family Bible the day that their children were born. And that for years was an official record. Okay. So imagine what it's like, in parts of Europe. So tracing it would be, it can be quite difficult.
It's like solving a mystery.
Well, it is. It's solving a mystery. And then many times, okay, like, so I had a friend of mine, Hank, who passed away, several years ago. And he was actually born in Germany and came over during, I guess right during or World War II time, whatever. And blah, blah, blah. When it came time for him to turn 65, he had to go track down his original, certificates of birth or whatever it was. And the town that he was in Germany had become Poland after the war. Okay. So he had a little problem with that. And then if you were, I don't know if he made phone calls or how he handled it. I don't remember now, but, trying to call what you think used to be Germany, now they're speaking Polish probably. So, that can be a problem in parts of Europe, how things change, regions and so on. And, so yeah, I don't put a lot of, I don't really care about all that stuff, but it is quite interesting that some people really get into that. And these DNA tests are not very accurate too, because family members, brothers are getting back different test results. Okay. I don't think that should happen. So it's kind of weird. But anyway, how was your guys' week? Everything good for you guys?
Everything good. I got a question about your name. So what town do you think it's from?
Excuse me. Montegallo. Okay. So That's where my grandfather, the Cecchine, was from. So that is, I'm okay, northeast of Rome. So like kind of like it's on a cusp of southern Italy. Um, it's like a little farm town, farming areas apparently. But yeah, Montegallo is where the Cecchine, my grandfather was from. Um, and then my grandmother, the woman he married, uh, she passed away before I was born, so I had a different grandmother. She was from Roccarosa, which again is west or east of Rome, but a little more south. So kind of like it's almost like equidistance between Rome and Naples.
Okay.
Okay, so Nabaladan but see, my whole life I was raised thinking I was Calabrese, and then the rumor was that my grandmother was from Sicily because her name apparently was her maiden name was apparently like a Sicilian name. So there you go. Maybe her parents, so what would be my great grandparents, maybe they emigrated to Italy from Sicily. I mean, who knows? I'm not going to go digging. I don't know. It don't matter to me. I just want the Cleveland Browns to win today. That's all I care about is the legacy of the Browns. What about you, Nico? Where is your family from?
Well, the name Indovina is a Sicilian last name. And apparently it can have several meanings. It can mean fortune teller. It can mean to intuit. Also in Sicily, it could mean praying mantis. So I don't really know, what the true meaning of the name was intended. But I've heard that a lot of the people that came from Europe and when they arrived in New York on the boat, they just told the person what their name was, and the person would just basically sound it out and spell it. So a lot of the spellings are completely off from the original spelling. So, I don't think we'll ever really find out if that's originally how you spell it.
Well, my name, it means, believe it or not, sniper. Like a sniper, apparently. But
Wow.
like again, yeah, right. But it could be a regional thing too. Like you just said, you could have various meanings. Uh, what about you now, Joe? Where's your family from in Italy? 'Cause you're not fully Italian, so where's your Italy family from?
So it's on my father's side, and that's supposedly Sicilian. So I'm trying to think if my grandfather immigrated over. So, from his side of the family, but we really, and, kind of goes back to that discussion about, what's the interest in doing this genealogy work and, this research. But so much of my father passed away when I was pretty young, and he had already kind of in an Italian way, kind of had cut off a lot of his family members. They're just like kind of grudges and vendettas where he just didn't want to talk to, like he cut off he only had a half brother. And there was just some falling out in the family. So because he was not in touch with them when he passed away, there was already a huge amount of distance. So I, maybe once met my grandmother on my father's side, and she had already moved to Arizona, I think, at that point. So I just remember some family road trip seeing her. But that was it. And it was kind of like lost. My brother-in-law actually found out that my father's half brother, he was the drummer in the family. He's the one supposedly who, again, a lot of these stories, there's a lot of hearsay because, I'm getting a lot of stories, like the closest I get is secondhand stuff from my mom. So, she supposedly said that, when Gene Krupa was in the city, that he had come over to the house, my father's house when my father was young, because, I guess, my father's brother was in the jazz scene at that time. That's the only thing, the only impression I have of him is that she said that he was always, he had, like, if he had pencils or forks or whatever in his hand, he was always drumming on something. He was always just tapping away, which she said would drive her nuts. But he just said he was compulsively, like kind of drumming away and tapping on things, just kind of is always in his head. But apparently he died young too. My father tried to get a hold of him. So my father had a congenital condition. And all of a sudden he realized, gosh, I better get a hold of my brother to make sure, warn him that he may have this condition too. And he could never get a hold of him. They had been so cut off that he never was able to track him down. Well, it turns out he was already dead from something else. So that's how, like I said, that whole side of my family is like a mystery to me. Through Facebook, though, it's kind of interesting. Someone did reach out to me, someone with the last name Cardinal, and they had messaged me and I had missed it. So it was kind of, I was kind of several months late responding, but they're like, hey, I think we have a relationship here, whatever. And they had done some genealogy. But yeah, so I've got, like, on my mother's side, it's German and Irish. So, but again, that's all. So my grandfather's name on her side was Kane, from Ireland. And I don't know what he was, and the German side was Burke. So, like, I'm a mix of all your kind of, rough and tumble, off white people from Europe, I think.
So
Basically.
do you know what the name cardinal means? Is it named after the bird, or does it have a different meaning in Italian?
I don't know specifically, but it could be the religious. So someone might have had a role in the church. So it's actually kind of like a job title kind of a thing.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of people, their last names had a job title of what it was.
Yeah, well, that's what yeah, right. That's what they say, and there's nothing wrong with people who, there's people who make, this is like a giant hobby for them, or even some, it's a career, obviously, I just never had the, I just never had the desire. I'm an only child, but, I don't, what it is, for me. But, yeah, it's cool that everybody seems to know. It just, but you're right about one thing, Joe, with the hearsay, in stories, and it happens all the time. Things get exaggerated either intentionally or, unintentionally. And you don't know, what's really the truth, or then it's like opinions, like, oh, your great grand, like this one guy in the neighborhood here. He keeps telling me about his great grandma, his great grandmother, and he wants to show me a picture because there's a picture of her with an accordion. Okay. And I guess he says he plays the guitar and he wants to hook up one day, maybe next year, in the spring, and get him on a guitar, me on the accordion. I'm like, well, I don't really play anymore, but then he talks about his great grandmother and his grandmother and what she could play on the piano, and how, her piano teacher, his grandmother's piano teacher, studied with Scott Joplin, which is a ragtime guy. Apparently, this is how these stories get handed down, so who knows, but it's, yeah, I'm sure every family has those stories, and every larger family probably has the one or two relatives that you don't want to talk about for whatever reason. I think we all have that. I've heard plenty of stories from my friends about family members, the aunts or uncles, or especially uncles, that are like goofy or whatever. But yeah, outside of that, man, today's the first day of November. I'm actually anxious to get 2020 over with, although, it's just more of a numerical thing. I don't know, because things are going to just keep on rolling along. Yeah, and it's been gloomy it's going to be, although we're supposed to have some good weather this week, middle of the week. I've got to do some things outside here, so hopefully I can get them done. And my exterior door handle just snapped on my car, so I can't open my car door from the outside. I got to go in through the passenger side and open it from the inside, which is weird. And because it's an older car and it's in mint condition, it's going to be a while before I can find a handle. And if I do, I'm going to have to get it painted. That's going to cost. And then I'm going to have it installed, because I can't do it outside and it'll be winter. So that kind of sucks, but I'm not going to really worry about it because I can still get into my car. It's just a little inconvenient. So Joe, are you still working from home, or are you back out in the city?
So I've been in the city like 3 days out of the week. I'm really only officially have to be there one. Um, but I just find it kind of better for me to get a change of scenery and get in there and focus on my work. So I've been commuting downtown. So uh, I know it's taken a little bit of a risk, but everybody so I take the metro in, everybody's wearing masks and they're real strict on it. So yeah, 3 days out of the week, I've been heading there. I mean, the weather was warmer, so I'd actually walk from the train station to my work, which was, it was a little bit of a hike, but it was a way of getting some exercise in and stuff too. But now that the weather's going, I'll probably have to take a bus from the train station. But yeah, so and we'll see next week. There's a lot of debate at work as to how many days or what days people should be coming down because with the election pending, they're not quite sure if there's going to be any, you know, negative riots or anything like that, or any activity that we're going to have to be concerned about. It's going to be an interesting week, that's for sure.
Well, speaking of the masks, and this kind of ties into what Nico said last week, how are the infection rates going up when everybody's wearing a mask? Well, you normally wear those blue medical masks. Well, I went and got my haircut on Monday, and I took a brand new mask, brand new. And I was telling the barber, I said, yeah, these work, but man, they snap. The thing that goes around your ear, the string, they always break. Sure as shit. She needed me to pull it down so she could trim around my ears, and it broke. I'm like, I can't believe this. So I went to the store right after that, and I walked in and I saw a kiosk. I had to get other stuff, but I saw a kiosk of these masks, not the one that I was wearing, but like nicer looking ones, fancy ones. Well, I didn't have my glasses. So I bought two of them because they just looked like, okay, these aren't going to be snapping. So they're called fashion masks, I guess. So when I got home, I put my glasses on. I'm looking at it. And this may answer Nico's question of how the infection rates are going up. It specifically said in a very tiny small print, these are not medical masks. These masks will not stop anything. Okay, in essence.
Yeah.
I wish I had it here. I could have read it to you. When I read that, I'm like, holy cow, because most people are wearing these types, maybe not the exact brand that I picked up off the kiosk, but that could explain it. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, so this is just, lip service. I don't know. But yeah, I'm kind of upset because the medical masks like that I was wearing just, they get, 2 in 2 days just snapped, the elastic. I couldn't think of the name of it, the elastic string, and that, man, come on. It's kind of ridiculous, but anyway, I'm tired of always, talking about it now that they rolled us back over here for those people that aren't watching this from Chicagoland. I think we have our governor we're broken down into like 11 regions. And my region's a hot spot. Well, my actual county is a hot spot, but my region is kind of lower because of the fact that we're lumped in with Lake County and their positivity rates were kind of low. But anyhow, I think 9 or 10 regions out of the state of Illinois are back to some modified lockdown kind of. Right now, it's affecting bars and restaurants pretty much only. But so everybody around here is either not obeying it, they're defying it and staying open, or people are just complaining like why is all that those bars and restaurants, why is that getting singled out when I can go to such and such a store? I can go to a Kohl's or a Walmart or wherever, and I'm just burned out with it. I'm just tired of it. Whatever has to get done is going to get done, and we'll see what happens, man. But I can tell. I try to tell these people one thing. It isn't like, it's not an American epidemic. It is a pandemic. It's happening in Europe. It's happening in other places. So this is not a plot to get the president or get the governors or whatever. It's more than just America. So
I've heard that Europe is locking down pretty hard right now.
I guess England is, Boris Johnson is shutting, really rolling back, like all non-essential businesses, at least through December. And again, I mean, what's the point in talking about it? Because people are either not going to believe anything anybody says, or they will. And so nobody's on the same page. But apparently, what I read is that this go around now, this virus situation or mutation is worse than it was, or is going to be worse than it was, in the beginning. I don't know. Who knows? But anyhow, it is what it is. Uh, so I'm going to probably roll out mass text mail next week, just telling people everywhere, hey, you're going to be back in a lockdown. If you want to do the distance learning with me, let's do it. I've never, really sent out an email about it. I just talked about it once or twice on Facebook and then on here. But, we'll just do what we'll just see. Apparently now we're on TuneIn as well for the podcasts. I did not hear back from iHeartRadio or what was the other one? Pandora. So I don't know what the procedure is. But apparently we're on TuneIn as well. I don't check these. I don't know how to do these things. So that's Joe's department, man. Joe's the IT guy. He's the guru of podcasts. He is the living, walking advertisement for hair care. You should get some sort of endorsement deal with some shampoo conditioner company, man, or even maybe, Sport Clips or Great Clips or something like that. They should reach out and contact you to maybe do some modeling, Joe, because it's astounding what we're seeing here, this development of you, this metamorphosis.
Really, it is. Yeah, I am very much like a butterfly coming out of the cocoon on this one. And, it is a shame for all the people who are just listening in on these various service, if they're not watching, they really don't get the full effect. So that's one of the, definitely find it on YouTube if you're looking for some excitement. We definitely need to make a plug for that.
And I think you're in the unique situation where you can inspire certain people and also demoralize other people because, certain like guys can look at you and say, man, I can never look as good as Joe. And then they just get the defeatist attitude. And there's others that are like, wow, if a guy that looks like Joe can, improve his looks so much like he's doing now, there's hope for me. And I think that's to me, that's, I'm going to take the inspirational route, and I'm going to look at it like you could potentially be inspiring a whole new generation of people.
That's all I want to do, really. And I was going to say, I'm glad to see you're in the holiday spirit too. I know it's November 1st, but clearly you've still got some of your Halloween makeup on, embracing the season. So that's great.
Yeah, I'm a champion winner in the Halloween contests. Yes, I feel in the Halloween, I should say, in the Halloween spirit very, very much, and yeah, now that Thanksgiving is coming upon us, I hark back to your family when they immigrated over here. And I just, wonder, too bad submarines weren't invented back then. It could have prevented a lot of your family spreading their roots here in America. But what are you going to do? You're going to live with it. You're here. Okay. So we got to deal with it. But
it's true. They didn't have a wall they could build back then to keep me out. So me and my family, so we were able to get in under the wire, I guess. But did you have trick-or-treaters come by your place, man, at all? Or is it shut down?
I took my mom out yesterday. So we were not, from what everybody, I don't know about this community, but everyone else, their community, allegedly trick-or-treating was, if they had it, was between the hours of 3 and 6 p.m. So my mom and I did not get home until after that. So I don't know if we did or didn't. But I did her trick-or-treating at the adult daycare on Friday because I had to pick her up. Normally they'd bring her home, but I had to pick her up. She had a doctor's appointment. So they went through the different offices there. Each office, it's a building, it has like a little auditorium or like a cafeteria like you would in a school. And then, every room has this little office. So they did like a little parade and they all went and they got their little trick-or-treat. So my mom had a bag of candy that she brought home, which she's guarding like it's Fort Knox. So it's in her room, and it's probably the bag is probably empty now. But what about you, Nico? Was there trick or treaters out by you?
I don't think there was, but I wasn't home all day, so
Yeah,
I wouldn't know if there was, but I doubt it.
yeah.
I'm way out in the country. There's really no kids out here.
Well, even when I lived in the city before I moved out here, I in the nearly 10 years, I never got a trick or treater, and that was the city. That was shocking. Yeah, I never did. Um, and I think I told you guys this. I remember I was either in the seventh or eighth grade, and we had to do a debate, and I got chosen for one side. The debate was, should we keep or get rid of Halloween? And I was picked to be on the side of debating to keep Halloween. And like I said, that was in the seventh or eighth grade, so that was in the late '70s. So the debate about banning, or whatever words you want to use, Halloween, it's not a new concept. It's you know that was probably what 40 over 40 years ago when I was in grade school. So um, yeah, it's a thought that's been around for a while. Isn't it something like All Hallows Eve? Isn't that like the history of Halloween? I mean, does anybody know? Because I don't remember. I'm sure I did.
I don't know
it's
the origin. Do you know it, Joe?
no, I used to know it. I mean, I think it had some kind of church tie-in, and it definitely had some kind of like, you know, ritual with the jack-o'-lanterns where they tried to scare away spirits and things. It was a lot of really great old-time spooky crap that they would do back, related either to the church or, whatever the pagan religion of choice was at the time. But I can't remember all the details of it. I mean, some of that's lost now. We actually had a really good turnout. We have a ton of kids in this neighborhood. And I mean, like, I wore a mask at the door, just a face mask, not like a Halloween mask. Gave out candy and stuff, but it was only, and the weather was beautiful, so it seemed kind of normal. I mean, our neighbor actually had they used looked like a PVC pipe, and they'd actually from their porch would like slide the candy down to the kids so the kids wouldn't get close, and the kids all thought it was cool and fun. So it kind of seemed mostly normal for us. And even like, so I grew up in the city, and we were pretty regular. It was a more residential neighborhood in the city on the north side, but Halloween was always kind of a big thing, growing up. I think some of the religious people talked about banning it, and there was always kind of like those rumors of like, oh, they're putting razor blades in the candy or stuff like that, or so there's always kind of some scare tactics or whatever. And maybe some of those stories are true, but whatever backlash against it, it's kind of hard to go against they're swimming against the current, I think, as far as I think people love dressing up and getting candy and stuff. It's a great time. So in Cleveland, Tony, when you were growing up, I know you were in a rough neighborhood, but were they still doing like normal? Was it safe enough that kids were still doing Halloween and that kind of stuff?
They did. I mean, they did do Halloween, but I remember like the hospitals. There was like a Mount Sinai was probably the closest hospital, and they would offer to X-ray the candy, to make sure there wasn't anything in it. But they did do stuff. I mean, they did put junk sometimes in the yeah, but yeah, they did it, but there wasn't that many kids. I mean, but yeah, we did it. I did it like maybe 4 years only, and then it was to the point where, yeah, you don't want to do this. It was to the point where people running around, with masks or costumes, and they could be 19, 20, 21 years old, and there's damage going to happen, and it did. So pretty much it stopped. But I've never, I asked everybody that I saw this week, just to change the subject off all the other talk, and I asked everybody, have they ever been to a Halloween Halloween party as an adult where you dress up? Because I never have. I'm not into that, right? And only one person told me that they did. And she said it was years ago, like 30 or 40 years ago, when she was an adult, that she did it. She went to some bar or whatever and did a Halloween contest, or not contest, Halloween costume, yeah, I've never done that. Did you guys ever hear of that? Because they used to have these things called come as you are parties. Did you ever hear that?
No.
Well,
What is it? An adult Halloween party?
well, it's not necessarily a Halloween party. It could be any time of the year, but it's a come as you are party, meaning, let's say you hold a party at 10 o'clock at night, right? How are you dressed at 10 o'clock at night? Are you in your pajamas? Because that's how you're supposed to come. How would you normally dress at this hour, right? So you come at that hour how you normally would dress, come as you are. I've never done one of those, but I've actually seen those on like episodes of old television shows. I think that was like a big thing in the 70s because also in the 70s or right around there, the 80s, they used to have these fondue parties because that was taken off and people would buy the fondue dishes or not dishes, but you know, the wok or whatever it is. And people would have these fondue parties. And also, if you watch the old TV shows, they would have bridge parties, you know, the card game bridge and pinochle and all that. I used to play a lot of pinochle, but times change, man. You know, that stuff, I don't think people do much of that anymore. You know, these little social get-togethers. I can tell you living out here, you know, in the sticks now, there's not a lot of that. The big thing they do is maybe in the summer, spring and summer or whatever, people will have converted garages where they, you know, they got a beer cooler or refrigerator or whatever. And people will hang out listening to music and they'll do stuff like that. But as far as like getting together on a regular basis, I don't see that at all. Hardly at all, ever. I haven't seen it out here. So I guess as a society, we're kind of probably changing, at least what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I've never been into Halloween or dressing up. Even since a kid, never liked candy. Nothing ever appealed to me about it. And still to this day, I mean, I would never dress up and go to a party. I think it's ridiculous.
Well, I like the candy, but I don't, I just never got really into it. I mean, I did it as a kid and I a few times got dressed up, but I'm like you. I mean, I don't have anything against it. I just, you know, it's not me. Just like baseball caps. You know, I don't wear one. Okay. I mean, I have a collection of them, but I don't normally wear them. And it's rare that I'll wear an Italian hat or something like that. It's very rare. Like maybe once or twice a year, you know, but you look around, many, many, many men and women wear hats or caps, you know. I look too, you know, when you look at speaking of women and the hats or whatever, when you look at some of the old photos, you know, like way back when, you know, and these women would wear these big, beautiful hats. And it's still kind of a tradition. They do that at the like Kentucky Derby and things. It's kind of cool. I mean, it looks like really, really classy, but hats went out years ago. I mean, you know, those kind of hats, they're rare that you see a woman wearing that, but guys wear hats.
But it is interesting that changed culturally. I heard it was John Kennedy actually that kind of made it not fashionable. Because back, you know, if you look at when guys were in suits or going to business back in the 40s, 50s, whatever, they always had like a fashionable hat on, you know. You can almost date a picture by looking at like what kind of hats they were wearing. And then all of a sudden, guys just stopped wearing them just routinely. I mean, now the only thing is like literally baseball caps are the only kind of acceptable, or winter hats. But it used to be that like you usually had a dress up hat. Like my grandfather had a bunch of hats, you know. But now if you wear it, it seems like you're, you know, like it's just kind of an affectation, something, you know, like you're wearing it almost as part of a costume now. You don't see men like, you know, during the winter, even when you'd think with the rain or, you know, snow and stuff that you'd want to have like a dress hat it's just gone, you know. It is kind of weird how that just happened. And that seems like a functional thing to kind of have. But yeah, it's weird that like over time, just kind of going to your discussion about like how things just kind of culturally shift. I mean, playing cards, like you said, people used to get together and play cards pretty regularly, not just poker nights, but like all different kinds of games. And maybe because home entertainment's gotten so, you know, like now you have cable on 24/7, you almost don't need other people around. And they talk about like isolation, but I do think it's just one of the many things you see shifting, whether it's fashion or routines in people's lives. You know, they're not always for the best. You know, I think a lot of people get isolated.
Yeah, well, you can look back at like baseball games or something, and you know, in the 20s or 30s, and you'd see a lot of men with coats, you know, suit coats and ties, and just, you know, going to a baseball game. and things like that, boxing matches and stuff. And I guess jeans weren't really a big thing until probably, or starting to become a thing until maybe the 50s. It was considered work clothing. Um, and again, I mean, I'm sure there were exceptions to it, but I've never, ever, my grandparents that raised me never had jeans. Never. They didn't own jeans, period. Okay. I'm not saying my grandfather dressed in a suit, but think of Archie Bunker, the way he dressed, like dress pants or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, I know several guys now, even they're mid to late 70s. They don't wear jeans. They don't own jeans. Yeah. So a lot of, it's a culture. It's a shift, for sure. And you mentioned something else just now that I can't remember now, but I was going to touch on that you said, but, change sometimes is good, not always. I mean, I think progress is a better better thing to look for. Let's progress from here. But, it's just a whole different, thing. I think a lot of like you, oh yeah, I know what it was. You were talking about cable and everything else. Yeah. I think that has a lot to do with it, and internet and, just cell phones, I know people that, drives me nuts to watch them. They're constantly on their cell phones to the point where it becomes an addiction. Okay. They're on it. They don't stop. I mean, it's like a chain smoker. Okay. And, they're either texting or they're playing a game, whatever on their phone. And these are the types of people that, they probably don't want to go to your house and not even gamble, just play cards or play Monopoly or anything because, their minds just aren't geared there like that anymore. It's, it is strange. I can remember too, as a kid, there, like baseball games weren't, not every game was on, we didn't have, like, I could watch every Indians game. Okay. It wasn't like that. But you did have the MLB Major League Baseball game of the week. Normally it was Joe Garagiola or maybe Vin Scully calling it or whomever. Well, so once a week you could get a national baseball game on. And football, if the home game wasn't sold out, you had a blackout. Now I think that's still pertinent. I think, well, except for this year, obviously, because of the COVID, but you get my point. But yeah, with cable or with this or that, Fire Sticks and Roku, you can pretty much watch anything you want to watch. We had 3 channels, 3, 5, and 8. And then we had channel 25, which was our public broadcasting. And then we had channel 43, which was UHF. And then on and off, we had channel 61, okay, in Cleveland. That's when I was growing up. So you can forget about channel 25, WVIZ. That was public broadcasting. Rarely you watch that. So we had channels 3, 5, and 8, CBS, NBC, ABC, whatever, So if nothing was on that you really liked, or a certain night there was nothing to watch, hey, it's a Thursday night. There's nothing good on TV. We're going to have our card parties every Thursday night, or bowling or whatever. Now, yeah, you mentioned it. Cable, I think it's too much. I mean, it's just too much, man. It's just information overload.
It's like we lost touch with humanity. Everybody's so attached to the technology that we're losing touch with, relationships.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. It's the in-person thing. I can share this story because these two people are passed away. So Kevin, everybody knows who he was, and well, he had a brother, Jeff. And I'm not going to get into the backstory, but for a while, Jeff was staying with his daughter down, I believe it was in Kentucky. It was some southern state. That's irrelevant. But anyway, she had a party and she was going to have like 10 or 12 people over. So Jeff was going to stay upstairs in his room and only come down if he had to use the bathroom or maybe, hit the kitchen. So he said he was upstairs in about 45 minutes or an hour, and it was dead quiet, totally no sound. So it's like, oh, I'm going to go downstairs. They must have left. Party's over. He said he walked downstairs and everyone was in the one room and they were all on their cell phones. Nobody was talking, nothing. There were no interaction. Even though there was a group of them, they were all on their cell phones. That's why it was dead silent. Um, yeah, I just can't, I mean, their cell phones are great. Don't get me wrong. They have their place. And in essence, now you're almost forced to have it because you no longer have pay phones anywhere. So if something happened, an accident happened, you need your phone. But it's just like, it's just too much, man. People just assume I can get a hold of you 24/7, no matter where you're at. You can't escape it. And I know from personal experience from like certain friends of mine who are going through relationship issues, it's like she didn't text me today, or I texted her and I haven't heard from her in 2 hours, and that just escalates. That just makes a problem, right? And I think all of us know with texting or emailing how the written word can get it can get misinterpreted. Okay. And that can cause some issues. So yeah, the personal interactions just seem to be lacking. I don't know.
Yeah, I've read that the use of the technology triggers a reward center in your brain and dopamine production, and actually can be more addictive than like hard drugs. But I don't know how true it is, but it seems to be really true if you look at people. I mean, they're just addicted to the phone and social media and tablets, and seems to be very addictive.
I'm attuned to that. I tend to be observant by nature. And I think one of the reasons I'm like observant and maybe overly observant is, when I do go out, I'm normally by myself. I go out alone. Okay. So it's not like I'm out with, let's say, one of you guys or both of you guys. So I'm immersed in our little conversation. I'm normally out by myself. So I'm sitting there, alone, nobody to talk to, so I'm watching, I'm looking around. Normally, whatever's on TV during the day when I can go out, I'm not interested in it. Okay. So I'm not watching it. Yeah. And I just see person after person just on their cell phones constantly, man. I even told one lady, I'm like, she wouldn't put the damn thing down. She even had like a little, what do you call it? Like a stand. So it was like, like a mount, and she's texting away. I don't know who to, none of probably your boyfriend, doesn't matter, or girlfriend, it doesn't matter, but she's on it. She just won't stop. I'm like, damn girl, read a book or something. If you don't have anything to do at work, read a book, or find something to do. But it just, maybe I'm, making a mountain out of a molehill, but it just, I don't know. I think when you work in the public sector, part of your job responsibility is to be an entertainer in a way. If you're a waitress or a bartender, let's say, you need to, I've told bar owners this, the bartenders are the first line normally of, when you walk in, they're the first line of representation of your business. And, if you're just sitting there by yourself and the bartender is too engrossed in anything outside of work, like stocking or cleaning or something, which is understandable, and they're just letting you sit there, that's bullshit. I've walked out of places, or I've told bartenders, hey, you need to talk to your customers. If your customers don't want to talk to you, you'll know, then you leave them alone. But many times people just want, they're going out for, some sort of companionship. Okay. And now that bars and restaurants, technically are indoor dining and indoor drinking are closed right now, and they were earlier this year, and they may be again. It's really more important now than ever that when they are open again and people can go out, you want to be engaging with these people. Make them. 'Cause everyone is tense. We really are. Everybody is tense. And we need to find a way to blow things off. And Nico hit the nail on the head as far as I'm concerned with. It's a generational thing now. It's just like, people are being, people are being raised without that personal interaction. when's the last time any one of us have literally written a letter to someone, a friendly letter, not like a business letter, and mailed it? We probably don't do it, because we can email, or you can do the Facebook thing, or you can text. You know, and, we're losing a lot of, I don't know. I think we're just losing a lot of important things that we should probably focus on. That's my opinion.
Yeah, there's something special about getting a handwritten letter as opposed to a text or an email. And I think the same way as far as reading a book. Like, you read a book on, like a book online on your computer or on your phone. To me, it's much more engaging and much better reading an actual book with real pages.
Well, my vision has gotten bad as my hearing is gone. My vision isn't very good, and it's difficult for me because I have a lot of PDFs or books on the internet. I mean, on the computer and everything. It's hard for me. And I'm with you, Nico. I like a book. I like to physically hold the book. I like to go here, whatever. And it's just the print, the feel of the pages, everything. Yeah, I just, and I don't think it's because I'm an old man. I'm looking at books. I'm looking beyond the camera here. I have a small little bookcase built into the wall here with some encyclopedias and just books, magazines, and I miss that, that there's not a lot of stuff anymore, coming out. Certain newspapers are shut down, magazines have gone out of business. I get it, times change, but yeah, I like an old-fashioned book.
I read something about, they did like a study on the retention of people reading from a screen as opposed to reading from actual paper and book. And it said that the people that read from an actual book had 30% higher retention of reading comprehension than the people that read from the screen. And that seems to be true with me. I feel like I absorb the information better just reading from an actual printed book.
I didn't hear that, but it makes sense. I mean, I could see it. I was always a voracious reader. I could read pretty quickly. I mean, not a speed reader kind of thing, but just I could. And I remember I even would buy used books, right? Many times, because you couldn't get the book new. Maybe it's out of print. And I would go through the book, and there'd be maybe parts of the book underlined by the previous owner, or highlighted, with those markers. Just little passages, which is awesome, and there's probably a way of doing that with your laptop or your phone. I don't know how, but that was kind of cool. So you could go through, important parts of the book and just skim through it, and yep, here's a highlighted thing. And yeah. So again, see, times change, man. Time marches on, they say, but we're at an era, where it's revolutionary. Okay. Who would ever thought that way they would, get rid of books? Now, I'm not saying they are yet, but yeah, for some people, I know I've asked friends, that it's been years since they read a book. That's astonishing to me. It really is.
What's weird to me is, like, I think a lot of kids in school now don't have books. They'll give kids like an iPad with all the text on it. I don't know how teachers do it, because kids would be on their phones or they'd be on these iPads surfing. Like if I was if I was school age and I had access to the internet, there's no way I'd be paying attention. I'm assuming they have some filtering programs and they're probably refining it, but yeah, I don't even know what it's like for school kids these days, man. I mean, in some ways you kind of have to lock kids down and force them to pay attention, because normally if you have a distraction, like basically you have a television in your hand, yeah, it's crazy to me that, there's now kids don't have to have big backpacks full of books anymore. They're just distributing like iPads where they can get all their texts. That's gotta be tough, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I would have to agree, because even with me, if I'm on the internet, my mind will wander, or I'll read something and there may be a link. Let's just say I click the link. Now that takes me to something. Now I'm reading that, and then there's a link there. Now I'm going there. Yeah, you have to be disciplined. I think in a way it takes a little bit more or a different style of discipline now. Before, if we had an assignment or just out of your own leisure, you had a book that you wanted to read, you'll hunker down and get through that book, depending on your reading comprehension and your abilities. You can get through that book in a couple of days or a day or 3 days or whatever. Yeah, now we have distractions. And I don't know. I just don't know if that's, I mean, there's pros and cons, to it. I mean, yes, we have convenience, but I used to tell people that now you got a lot of folks who are Google smart, right? They don't know the answer, but they'll Google it. And it's a false sense of intellectual presence. Okay. Makes them perhaps smarter, to appear smarter than what they really are. And a buddy of mine and I were talking about this just last week, how it would be fun to rack your brain, about a question, really think hard about it. Think. And a lot of people don't do that. They'll give it a little bit of thought. Oh, I don't remember. Let me look it up. They'll be on their phone. Let me look it up. And it doesn't allow your brain to go back into its resources and think about, oh yeah, I do know the answer. Let me get to it. Give me a minute. I'll figure it out. And then two, you got to warn, like Wikipedia, you can forget about Wikipedia. Anybody can go in there and edit it, or, a lot of it is bias. You don't know what's really true. And I've read books too. Don't get me wrong. I've read books from the past that were full of shit. They weren't real. There was phony, there was errors in the book. Okay. And I don't mean grammatical errors even. I'm talking about factual errors. So yeah, that's always been a part of it, but hopefully it was few and far between. I was always the type of guy, while I did read some nonfiction, I normally read either technical stuff or let me backtrack. I did read most of my stuff was nonfiction, but I meant to say there were times that I would read fiction. Okay. Like I mentioned a week ago or whenever, The Three Investigators, the Alfred Hitchcock series, and just, books that were, fictional. But for the most part, I read nonfiction, but technical stuff. Okay. Maybe electronics or on, certain subject matters. But I know a lot of people read a lot of fiction. Okay. Which, crime novels or this or that. So, there's no accuracy there. There's no, it's fiction, like you can say anything you want to say. But yeah, I've never been one of those guys that likes to read fiction too much. I'd say 20% of my previous reading history was fiction based. It's all of my stuff is more either technical based or of a nonfiction thing. So for me, facts are very important. Because if I'm reading something that I know I'm supposed to be learning from, I want to make sure that what I'm learning is really accurate.
I was always a nonfiction reader as well, still to this day.
Yeah, there's some good stuff, in fiction. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if I were to write a book, which I'm not, but if I were to, I'd probably make it like semi fiction. I would never write a fantasy book like that where you're creating countries and cities and all of that. I would probably write something based on historical fact, but I would maybe, make it entertaining, like the movie The Hustler with Paul Newman, right? There was a book first, Walter Tevis wrote the book. I got the book. And The Color of Money, the sequel, the book of The Color of Money was far better than that trash movie that came out about it. But yeah, it was based on, legitimate things, pool halls, cities, elements. And I found it, quite compelling. Of course, I had already had a love for the game of pool, but, But yeah, but I've never been a guy who's like, I know people, I don't know anything about it, like Harry Potter. I never saw a Harry Potter movie, right? So I don't know anything about that's fantasy to me. Um, that's like, or maybe it's even science fiction. I don't know how they would label that, but I I was never really into that at all. I don't even think I ever read a sci-fi book. I really don't think I did. Just that just never appealed to me. What about you, Joe?
I read a mix of things. I think mostly, I read some news articles. But again, this is online. This isn't print again. But I'd say probably 50% of my reading is news or nonfiction related. But yeah, I'll read some fiction. I'm a really big fan of the original Conan stories. I think they were really well written. So I just enjoy the writing style. It's fascinating to me how, some stories, like you were kind of mentioning how the books, The Color of Money was better than the movie. I mean, sometimes, yeah, in books, you have a way of elaborating on things. You just have the time to really expand on things that, let's say in a movie, you don't, you have to edit things out. And so it's kind of interesting that medium can do things that others can't. So you can appreciate it for what it is, And the interesting thing about fiction too is a lot of times, even though everything's made up, you can be making a point about something that's very real, So you can take fictional characters and create a whole story, even in like an imaginary, setting, and still have it being pertinent for what's going on in the real world. And I think that's kind of fascinating too, that authors are able to do that often. So it's a mix of things. And obviously I'm a comic book nerd, so I read those, but I don't know if you'd count that as actually reading, but I enjoy the illustration and the art of that as well. So that's a whole other aspect of time, I spent with print.
Well, in the example of The Color of Money, I mean, it wasn't there was no correlation to the movie. The Tom Cruise character did not exist in The Color of Money book. Okay, it was Minnesota Fats existed, and from what I read back then, Jackie Gleason, who originated the role in The Hustler, wanted to play Minnesota Fats in the sequel, and that movie was a what's the word I'm looking for? It was to try to catapult Tom Cruise, basically. As I said, the screenwriter created that character and that whole tagline, which saddens me. He should not have been in that movie. It should have just been based the way the book was. And it wasn't, I remember reading The Godfather by not Truman Capote. I can't remember what the guy's name is now, the Italian guy. I can't think of it.
Mario Puzo.
Yeah, Mario Puzo. And it was this thick. I mean, it was big, thick book. I used to have it. I lost it through the years. It was just terrific, and it went into things that the movie didn't get into, like, boy, I wasn't prepared for all of them. I can't think of names. It's hard for me right now. But his one bodyguard actually was a former cop. You don't know about this if you read it just based on the movie. But he actually, in one scene when he was wiping out the different Godfathers, he was dressed in a police uniform. Al Neary, that was the character's name. And he was big focus in Godfather Part 2. But in the book, the original book, he was a police officer, former police officer. So yeah, you're right, Joe. And then you have books that are like a series of books. Like I said, The Three Investigators, which they never made a TV show or a movie out of that, to my knowledge. Well, there was 40 books or whatever it was. It was a lot. So I remember that they had the Nancy Drew Hardy Boys, which I was never into that, but they had that TV series. And James Bond. Oh, by the way, yeah, Sean Connery passed away. That's something, 90 years old, huh? But yeah, that was based on novels by Ian Fleming. And that's always a debate, right? Everybody says their favorite Bond was probably, most people say Sean Connery. I was shocked to hear that he passed away. 90 years old though, man. Guy lived a long time.
Yeah, I like the original Bond too, Sean Connery, and actually the current guy. I can't even think of his name now. I'm blanking out, but I think he's pretty good too.
Daniel Craig.
Oh yeah, Daniel Craig. I think he's good too. I think those are my top two. I think, but yeah, I remember watching the old movies, on TV as a kid, and so it's definitely a bummer to see him go. He was just like, it's one of those constants. Everybody's going to go eventually. It seems like every week we've got somebody new. The Bring Out Your Dead segment of the show where some celebrity from the past is gone, but yeah, no, he was definitely cool. And it's just that vintage 60 vibe of those early ones are cool that they really can't really reproduce, That was what was kind of cool about those, even though they were very cartoony in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I thought they were ridiculous, but I loved them as a kid because of the beautiful girls and the exotic locations. So being in my environment, it was an escape for me. It was like going on vacation. Really, it was the closest thing I got to a vacation where here's a James Bond movie and he's in, Cairo or, Aruba or wherever, the different locations was nice for me to see, black and white or not. And then you had all these beautiful girls and stuff. I'm like, women, I'm like, Jesus, this is, and the sense of wealth, the way he dressed and the Rolex and the cars and all that jazz, the exoticness of it was the allure. But the fight scenes, the guy that he's an expert at everything, that kind of stuff, that I never liked that. The George Lazenby on Her Majesty's Secret Service. Now, he was, to me, very physical. He looked like he could handle himself. He didn't look like when I watched some of the stuff that Connery did, or especially Roger Moore, I mean, come on, don't try to do martial arts, Roger Moore. It just didn't look good. But I was, Roger Moore was more of my era, when I was a kid, because Connery was a little before my time, those James Bond movies. But so like, yeah, the good thing about Roger Moore is they were all in color. But they started to get ridiculous, like the Moonraker thing and all of that. Just where do you stop with this guy? There's nothing he doesn't know. But I just watched Never Say Never Again yesterday because of it. Because of kind of like James Bond, because of Sean Connery passing away. And it's funny, I just thought of him the other day. I swear to God I did, because I was thinking about Roger Moore being the one who's passed, the only Bond that died out of the movie Bonds, and then all of a sudden Sean Connery. But yeah, that's still a very successful franchise. I guess they got another one coming out, but it's been delayed because of the COVID. So I don't know when that's going to actually happen. But and Bond has changed, I guess. I don't follow it anymore. I don't even know if I've ever seen a Daniel Craig one. But I guess they toned down all the sexism and everything. Is that true?
Have you ever seen any of the Jason Bourne movies?
Oh,
I was just thinking about that, Joe. Jason Bourne. Those are good ones.
No,
Yeah.
I've never seen any of them.
And I think the new Bond is kind of influenced by those. So like those came out a little bit before Daniel Craig became Bond, and they kind of like the original. So the Bond movies, like by the 80s, probably even before that, they started to become more and more ridiculous. The cars that could drive underwater, and they just became more and more cartoony. And I think kind of the Jason Bourne movies kind of put the nail in the coffin on that, where it was just like people don't want to see. I mean, some people do, but it just becomes so almost like campy, slapsticky stuff that Jason Bourne kind of had more of a felt a little bit more real, like a real agent. And I think the Daniel Craig, like I think you'd probably dig the Casino Royale. That was the first one Daniel Craig did. But you can see the influence there. It was a lot of fun, and they did a really good balance of kind of modernizing it and kind of toning down the ridiculous gadgets and all the stuff that made it look like the Batman television show or something. So I think they did a good job of that. But yeah, I'd recommend, Tony, if you haven't checked it, maybe check out the first Bourne movie and then check out the first Daniel Craig movie. I think that's where like modern espionage movies, that's the aesthetic that a lot of them, of course, they're not modern anymore. Geez, these have been out for what, 10 or more years at this point.
Well, I'll do that. What I didn't like, what I don't like, and which turns me off of these movies are the ridiculous stunts. They're a joke. That's the old James Bonds, at least they were, more realistic. But, when I see like clips, advertising, the advertisements of Mission Impossible or this or that with these guys, and I've read stuff. We talked about this once before. Al Long, the one stuntman, he's like, stunts, it's a joke now. It's all CGI and they're doing things that not are physically humanly possible. And I think that movies or entertainment, television or movies, does play a subliminal game with people, right? So when all right, I'm just going to make an exaggeration here. So when they see a guy in the movie effortlessly lifting 1,000 pounds, and now they see you struggling to carry in your groceries, they're like, wow, you're a weakling. No, those things in the movies, some of them are so over the top. It's fantasy, right? Like you said, cartoonish. Some of these stunts are just, cartoonish. They're, it's too much for me. It's superhero shit. And if I'm not into that, if I want to watch a superhero thing, I'm going to go, watch the Hulk or whatever, Superman or something. Yeah. So I'm old school, man. I really am. I dig the movies of the 70s with that grit and the dirt and the down, like think about like the French Connection or something like that. Die Hard, or not Die Hard. Those were that was ridiculous too. But I can deal with that because they're kind of funny in a way. There's some funny scenes in there. And that Al Long, the stunt man, he's in Die Hard. But yeah, I would watch the Death Wish movies until they got stupid. The first two I could deal with. I don't think I even watched any of the other ones. But yeah, I used to like to watch those crime movies, Serpico, with Al Pacino, Dog Day Afternoon. And I don't know. I can't think. I don't go out to movies. I haven't been to a movie in years. I cannot. We were just talking about that yesterday because there's a drive-in over here. I've lived here almost 7 years. I've never been to the drive-in over here. And yeah, I just don't go to movies. It's been years. I can't remember the last movie that I was to. May have been Rocky Balboa. That's what I told somebody yesterday because a couple of my students took me to see Rocky Balboa at a theater where they serve you food. You could eat while you're watching the movie. And if I have been to a movie after that, I honestly don't remember. Maybe it was maybe I had to go see that horse race movie. Seabiscuit. I had to go see that. The girl that I was with, she demanded we see that. So I don't know if that came out before Rocky Balboa or after, but this is how long it's been since I've been to a movie theater. I can't even tell you. That's, I'm strange. I just don't do it. I just don't. But
talking about the unrealistic aspect of it, there's been especially some of these Bond, because the Bond movies, even with the Daniel Craig, they've been kind of amping up. I think like they always try and top the next one. And there's definitely times when I've watched, like there's scenes where he'll be in a horrific fight. Like they're just smashing through he's being thrown through walls and they're breaking through porcelain sinks, and he's bloodied up and beat up. And every time I watch that, because, he's obviously a middle-aged character or definitely like an older guy. And I'm like, and then he's fine the next scene. Then he's able to run around and walk. And I'm like, even though he wins the fight, I'll be like, yeah, I'd be healing for 3 months after a fight like that. I was just bludgeoned. I just can't watch it and see the human body doesn't take punishment like that. If anybody who's in the fight game and has been in some, tough sparring sessions, you realize, you don't need to, even just someone you don't have to smash into anything that'll take a while. That's, that pain will linger, as they say. So that does kind of take me out of the moment. It's definitely, I think a movie's better when they can make you believe it's real, when it feels like it actually could have happened. That when they go too far with it, it does lose something.
Yeah. It's all about suspending, disbelief, suspending your belief systems when you go in there. You can't, like most pro boxers have said that they interviewed have said that the Rocky movie is very unrealistic. I mean, no boxer's ever taken that kind of punishment. It wouldn't, the fight would have been stopped, but you kind of just put all of that off to the side for a while. But even so, like you just said, some of the stuff that they're doing in the well, you mentioned the Daniel Craig movie or whatever. I just seen things that are just, I just don't find it entertaining anymore. It's just too ridiculous because they're trying to pass the movie off as being reasonable. And then they'll throw this in there and it's just totally not reasonable. No bruises, no, it's rare that they have that, but hey, that's Hollywood, I guess. We're probably in the minority. I certainly am. I told you, I don't go to movies. So Hollywood's not going to make a movie to try to lure me to go back to the theater because, I'm not the market they're trying to reach, I'm just not. But then again, too, I like a lot of old movies. My favorite movie of all time is The Best Years of Our Lives. Okay. 1946 won the best picture of the year. It's about, three returning war veterans from World War II. And of course, I like The Godfather. So those are more epics. But to me, The Best Years of Our Lives is unquestionably, my favorite movie ever. And it is as touching and as heartwarming, and it reaches me on a personal level, which a James Bond movie is never going to reach me on a personal level because I'm not a secret agent. Although I've trained some guys, obviously, that have been in that world, military and high level law enforcement or whatever, however you want to label them. But the best years of our lives, really touched me and still does. And I watch it at least once a year, maybe more, depending. As a matter of fact, I was just listening to the soundtrack of it this morning. I listen to the soundtrack about once a week, just because of the music, the orchestration. It's like a 15-minute soundtrack and that I have, and I love it. It just puts me in a positive frame of mind. And that movie was way ahead of its time. It was never, they never talked about some of the things in that movie, marriage difficulties, alcoholism, alcohol problems, disabilities, physical disabilities, mental disabilities. It was a pioneering movie in many ways. And as I said, it won the best picture of the year and other Oscars. I believe Frederick March won an Oscar, and Harold Russell, who was legitimately disabled, won 2 Oscars for that movie. He's the only person to ever win 2 Oscars for a role. One was a special Oscar. And he never made another movie until many years later. He made a movie called Inside Moves. Rory, another classic movie.
Hey, I have to interrupt. We're getting a guest is trying to come into the broadcast here. I'm wondering if I should try and admit him here.
Well, go ahead, but we don't have much time, but left. But please bring our guest in.
Is it
Let's
possible,
see how this works,
Is it
everybody.
possible to start a new broadcast?
I don't have time today to do another hour and a half broadcast after this. That's the only problem. I'm
like a half hour.
Let's see. Let's try and get him in.